Welcome to Why Want That, which is an ongoing series here at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, a show that focuses on the dynamic world of Disney merch. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and with me is Disney expert Shelley Valladolid, who we've been waiting a long time to record this one tonight on Sunday, October 11th, 2020. That's right?
Yeah,
Okay, cool. I know a lot of people have been concerned, but you're feeling better now, right?
I am. I had a tummy tuck, and something went
Oh,
awry, and I had to stay in bed and do all these things, and I'm better now.
well, good. Okay. And the upside is it gave you a lot of time to pay attention, while you were healing up to what was going on in the collectibles field and what was going on for merch and all that. That's
Sure.
That said, it's still a pretty tough time to be talking about a collectibles and merch with so many stores now still trying to work around COVID-19 and the need for their customers to do social distancing where they shop or at the very least always wear a mask.
Always wear a mask.
Yeah. Now, Disneyland Resort, for those who haven't been following the news for the past week or so, kind of finds itself in a frustrating position right now. Wouldn't you say? Or
I would. They're locking horns with Governor Gavin Newsom, who would rather be on the side of caution, and Disney wants to be on the side of open.
yeah. Well, just to sort of recap here, folks. Disneyland Resort closed back on March 14th, again, due to the coronavirus. Walt Disney World closed a day later on March 15th. And back then, we all thought this was just going to be a couple of weeks. We'll, wear a mask, we'll shelter in place, we'll beat this back. But
It'll magically disappear.
Okay. Not how it happened. On the East Coast, Disney Springs began a phased reopening on May 20th of this year, and the theme parks out there started opening on July 11th. Disneyland Resort, again, different story. Downtown Disney Anaheim reopened to the general public on July 9th. And we're, as you said, we're in this weird phase where the Walt Disney Company and Governor Newsom are trying to sort out some sort of agreement. In fact, it was just yesterday that the Disneyland Resort announced that it was going to be adopting a brand new set of health and safety protocols, and in the hope of convincing California officials to allow the two theme parks in Anaheim to reopen. And that came on the heels of Governor Newsom saying last Wednesday that we don't anticipate in the immediate term any of the larger parks opening until we see more stability in terms of the data. We feel there's no hurry to put out guidelines, and we will continue to work with the industry. So,
Though on Mice Chat this week, micechat.com, the site I work for sometimes when I have good rumors.
Okay.
They've got pictures of some of the new guidelines and some of the new sanitation stations and things like that. If you want to go give that a look.
Oh, okay. Appreciate the heads up. Again, long story short, the Walt Disney Company, at this point, all Disney can have open in the state of California is Downtown Disney Anaheim, which has proven to be a challenge. Now, case in point, are you aware of the whole Wonderground Gallery story?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. All right, folks, just again to recap. Wonderground Gallery, wonderful, a place that opened back in June of 2012. I got to tell you, though, the store really does cater to a special clientele. It's more of the folks with deep pockets who are open to the ideas of seeing their favorite Disney characters maybe radically reinvented. But for me, what was truly great about the Wonderground Gallery is that it provided a showcase for a lot of new artists. And initially, business was so good that Disney Parks and Resorts decided to establish a second Wonderground Gallery. This one opened in June of 2014 at the Marketplace Co-op in Disney Springs in Central Florida. And did you get to visit that during your last trip to Walt Disney World?
No, we didn't.
Ah, okay. Because what they did is did so well that they actually bumped it out, created even more space within the co-op in 2015. So anyway, as we mentioned at the top, Downtown Disney Anaheim reopens on July 9th. Wonderground Galleries opens at the same time. And it would be nice to report that it did great business, but that's not actually what happened. A lot of those very essential customers with deep pockets who would then purchase limited edition prints and the like just didn't seem willing to drive down to Anaheim in sufficient number and then deal with the new safety and safety and social distancing protocols to keep this viable. And look, folks, there's the old cliche that the most important word in show business is business. And in a situation like this, where the only thing open at the Disneyland Resort are the shops and the restaurants at Downtown Disney Anaheim, every single store had to pull its weight, had to deliver better than expected sales per square foot. And if a particular shop wasn't delivering on that expectation, meeting its quota, well, things could change pretty quickly. And that's what happened with Wonderground Gallery.
Well, I do want to note that there every day are huge lines to get into the parking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That it's very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Not theme park popular, of course,
Yep.
but when something doesn't pull its weight with that,
Mm-hmm.
then they have to make a change, even if it's temporary, I hope.
Yeah, same thing here. You can remember, there's a bright side here, folks. The Wonderground Gallery still does exist. It's in Orlando. It's kind of a Toad Hall situation, or vice versa. We lost the Toad Hall at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, but it still exists actually in two places in Anaheim. What is it? The actual Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and then Toad Hall and Storybook Canal. Okay, Wonderground Gallery closes on September 15th and reopens the very next day as a Star Wars trading outpost store, which is loaded up with merch, the sort of merch that guests used to be able to buy when they wandered the bazaar at Black Spire Outpost.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against Star Wars merch, or for that matter, neither does Shelley. In fact, you have some great news about what Hasbro's up to with the Star Wars stuff, right?
Well, yeah, they had their Hasbro Pulse,
Mm-hmm.
which a little mini con.
Mm.
They had three things.
Mm-hmm.
They had Vintage, they had Black Series,
Mm-hmm.
and they had Vintage Collection, Black Series, and Force FX Elite,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lightsaber, and that's Ahsoka's lightsaber,
Oh.
and that comes in blue, green, or yellow
And-
because she's had all those different colors.
Okay. Any idea?
So
No, please
so-
continue.
Okay. In the Vintage Collection, we have Attack of the Clones Anakin, which is a new cloak, soft goods on Anakin, and it has a photorealistic face. They've been able to do this with, it's kind of what you see on some of the rides and some of the buildings during shows, projection mapping.
Got it.
Well, this is a smaller version. In fact, at D23 and at Comic-Con, you were able to get a Star Wars figure of yourself at one time with your face on it and photoreal face. And then they had the Phantom Menace, Queen Amidala in her black dress. Again, photoreal face. The Phantom Menace battle droid, Return of the Jedi TIE fighter pilot, Captain Rex, who's very popular from...
Star Tours, right?
No, not that Captain Rex, different Captain Rex.
Oh, no.
There's-
Star Wars Rebels. Likewise,
Rebels, that's it. I
Clone
can't
Wars.
remember.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Clone Wars. Yeah, Captain Rex. And then there's a Mandalorian incinerator trooper with a flame effect. Now, the Black Series, which is the most popular, they've got some amazing stuff. They've got a Phantom Menace Jar Jar Binks. They've got a Phase 1 clone trooper with a refreshed look. This is their nice way of saying second version or second edition, but they're calling it a refresh so that it stays in the first edition pile. They've got a Return of the Jedi Boba Fett, and this one, improved articulation, all new sculpt, flame, grapple hook, removable backpack, gun is cut in half, and molded cape. I don't know what the deal is with the gun cut in half.
Well, didn't during the sail barge scene on...
Oh, that's right. Good catch.
Okay.
Darkside Ray with a soft cape and a switchblade, the double blade. Mandalorian, the Armorer, exclusive version, former Celebration exclusive, will be mainline later. So, Yeah, they're taking some exclusives and they're making different editions of the same. If you take it out of the package, it's the same, but in its box, mint, as you know, it's great. They go in singularity file. We've got Commander Cody, Hoth Luke with a new photoreal face. Now I wonder how they do that from film, because I'm sure they didn't get Mark Hamill in there, because then he'd look, well, old. Archive, Empire Strike Back, also Han with a Hoth gear, brown jacket, photoreal face. Archive Thrawn, photoreal face for Thrawn. Red eyes. Thrawn has never been a flesh and blood character. He's only been animated. So how do you do a photoreal face with an animated? Well, it's 3D animation. Maybe you could feed it in there.
Do not know what to tell you.
And then there's these I love. Holiday Edition, Snow Trooper, Sith Trooper, and Clone Trooper, and Stormtrooper. And they have, well, the Sith Trooper has Babu Frick, and a Nerf gun and a Christmas scarf, exclusive to Best Buy. The Snow Trooper with a penguin porg has a sword and is only available at Walmart. The Clone Trooper with a candy cane stick and an ugly sweater and a fat penguin porg is available at GameStop, and that's the one I'm going to be getting. Then there's the Stormtrooper with the Praetorian Guard weapon, ugly sweater, a snow porg from Amazon. And then the Range Trooper with a Santa theme, Ice Sith Baton, Reindeer DRO, that's from Target.
Sounds like a lot of interesting stuff entering the pipeline, and particularly some fun Star Wars stuff headed into the holidays.
That saber looks good, and the holiday stuff sounds hilarious.
Well, anyway, to slide back to, again, losing the Anaheim version of the Wonderground Gallery. Look, there was demand for, the stuff from Galaxy's Edge, because, face it, people have been able to get into Disneyland for 6 months at this point. But again,
now you can get not just from Galaxy's Edge, but from Mickey's Star Traders.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Star Traders. I love old names.
Yeah. But again, for me, it's just tough because, we've now lost a place where you got to meet artists, places that these folks got to do signings and meet with their fans.
Well, here's the thing. The signage for the store is essentially blankets thrown over, brown fabric thrown over that says Star Wars Trading Post on it.
So
that can be pulled off really easily.
Okay,
I'm thinking it's temporary until the parks open again.
Okay,
depending on how much money they make.
But that said, I mean, face it, that we're kind of dealing with the exact same situation with Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar. That place has been locked up tight on both coasts since March, which has really been playing hell with the tiki mug collecting community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. I run a group on Facebook called Trader Sam's Mug Trading. And we've got a lot of independent artists making Disney-themed tiki mugs. Like Tiki Al made a Jungle Cruise boat. There's a Hatbox Ghost. There's Madame Leota. There's Hitchhiking Ghosts. There's some really great stuff. There's a hippo from the Jungle Cruise. And, it's just a letter off the name or something so they don't get Disney legal after them. The fans are stepping up.
Well, it's so funny you say that, because I was just listening to a recent episode of the Murder Squad, that true crime podcast, and Billy Jensen, one of the co-hosts, is a huge Disney nut, and he was talking exactly about what you're talking about here, that he has collected the mugs from Trader Sam. There's been this disruption, and there were all these wonderful mugs that were scheduled to come out over the past 6 months, but he's been in touch with one of the artists who do that, and he's got one of these very mugs that you're talking about coming to him. I don't know if it's the Jungle Cruise boat or the hippo, but can you also talk about what's weird about this time is that, sometimes the most wonderful things will turn up in the weirdest places. Can you talk about the Tiki Mini mug?
Oh, no, it wasn't a mug. It was a Tiki Mini doll.
Oh, okay. All right.
And a Facebook friend of mine went to her Disney store after she didn't make Merch Pass. She went to the Disney store and she found a single Tiki Mini there and bought it.
Wow. Okay. That's a lucky break.
That is. So if you can't make Merch Pass, run to your nearest Disney store. they may have it in stock.
Okay. Now, speaking of the Disney store, Nancy and I went to our local Disney store, which is in the Merrimack Premium Outlet up here in southern New Hampshire. Did notice something interesting. I mean, we're obviously still 3 weeks out from Halloween, but and they have these wonderful Star Wars themed costumes. They've got a great Rey. They've got a great Kylo Ren. I immediately thought of you. They also had a Darth Vader, but these were originally priced to go for $49.99 each and have since been marked down to $34.99. Whereas the Mandalorian costume, is still being sold for full price. Reading between the lines here, I'm going to face it, Mandalorian Season 2, which is going to debut on Disney Plus on September 30th, is still a hot property where obviously Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is not. So we'll have to slide back over there in a week or so to see what those outfits are going for then. Anyway, getting back to the Disneyland Resort here, we were just talking about Halloween costumes. If everything were right in the world, the parks right, in Anaheim right now would be right in the middle of Halloween time. And I don't need to tell you, Michelle, that when it comes to the merch, the wonderful Halloween themed merch that Disney typically has, those things are ordered, months, if not a year or more out. And what with the park being closed since March, these things have been in boxes in a warehouse for weeks and weeks and weeks now. Which brings us to what Disney did, what was it, earlier this past week?
October 6th.
October 6th, yeah. Opening the Backlot Premiere Shop, which is on entrance to the store is located on the east side of the Disneyland Esplanade, over by where the buses and trams and vans drop off guests who are staying off site. What have you heard about the Backlot Premiere Shop?
Not much, other than look what I got from a lot of people. Okay. It is located inside Soundstage 17 at DCA.
Yep.
But the entrance is on the Esplanade, so if you want to get your feet into DCA, go to that store.
And just in case you're wondering where Soundstage 17 is, folks, it's literally the building that stands between the 3D theater where they show Mickey's PhilharMagic and the show building that houses Monsters, Inc., Mike and Sully to the Rescue.
Isn't that where they had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something?
They did. And they also use this space a lot for press events and that sort of thing. If you're looking to score Disneyland 65 merch, which they did have quite a bit of it initially at World of Disney. Have you heard about what they're doing with the old ESPN zone in downtown Disney Anaheim?
What is it this time?
Well, what's interesting is it's been set up as a reservation-only shopping destination that is reportedly filled to the brim with limited edition items like the Disneyland.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but here's the thing. I mean,
the pin set.
They supposedly started, they announced this back on August 24th, and the idea was that people had to actually book access for this reservation-only shopping experience. They'd receive a 1-hour window to enter the old ESPN zone. I guess this was tried on August 31st, September 1st, and September 2nd, and since then, I haven't heard a whole lot. Have you heard anything about this?
Well, Dusty Sage from Mice Chat went, and there was only one or two actually new things there.
Oh.
A lot of old pins.
Okay. Not exactly, what, they overpromised, or?
I think so.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Okay, well.
I mean, I didn't go myself.
All right.
It's second hand, but
I was kind of intrigued by Disney offering this a reservation-only shopping experience. And speaking of shopping, how many of you know about that sequence that was shot for Hocus Pocus that showed the Sanderson sisters wandering the aisles of a supermarket in modern-day Salem?
I do.
Oh, cool. Okay. When Shelley and I get back from this break, we're going to talk about why these scenes were cut from that Kenny Ortega film.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Okay, and we're back. Look, folks, it's not often that a film, which was originally released to theaters in July of '93 and then only managed to come in fourth at the box office in its opening weekend, can then be re-released to theaters some 28 years later and come in third at the box office. This past weekend, I don't know if you saw the box office totals, Shelley. It came in third behind Tenet and The War with Grandpa. But then again, Hocus Pocus is a very unusual film. You know, one that over time has gone from being a box office disappointment to a cult favorite to now, well, it's a seasonal must-see. There's a lot of folks these days, anyway, who just don't feel like it's Halloween until they get the chance to catch at least one showing of Hocus Pocus during the umpteen million times this Kenny Ortega movie is shown on Freeform during that Disney-owned cable channel's 31 Days of Halloween programming event.
Me included.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, it's on, I'll get sucked in. And I honestly, I thought I knew this Bette Midler movie pretty well.
Speaking of Hocus Pocus and merch,
Yep.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just ordered a stuffed Binks with a little witch hat on.
Wow.
From shopdisney.com.
Okay. When you were in there, did you see if they have restocked the adult Sanderson Sisters costumes?
I didn't see the costumes, but the dress, the 50s style dress like they sell at the dress stores, they restocked that from last year.
Okay, because earlier this year they actually had full size. I mean, we're talking wigs, we're talking, and the thing is, you could get the full outfit for Winifred, Mary, and Sarah. But again, these were for adults, not little kids, and they sold out like crazy. And it's so strange where you'll run into Sanderson Sisters love. I mean, have you heard about the drinks that are on the secret menu at Starbucks?
No.
Yep. You can get there are 3 separate beverages, each of them matching the color palette of, the 3 sisters. I guess the Winifred drink is green, the Mary drink is red, and the Sarah drink is purple.
We'll be right back after I go to Starbucks. And we're back.
Okay. I must have seen this movie dozens of times at this point. In fact, you and I saw it together theatrically in '93 I think we actually saw a preview of it at the AMC at Pleasure Island before it actually opened.
We did.
Yeah. But anyway, so again, felt like I knew this movie. And it was just this past weekend when I learned that there were several scenes that were cut from this family-friendly fantasy comedy, one that actually left a pretty sizable hole in the third act. So what was this crucial shopping-related storyline that got cut out of this Walt Disney Picture release, you ask? Okay, you remember how in the opening moments of this Kenny Ortega movie, we see Zachary Binks' little sister Emily. It's a shot that's at a distance, but you get the idea, that she's being lured away from Salem Village by Sarah Sanderson, with the insinuation that it's Sarah's siren-like voice that first awakened Emily from her slumber and then persuaded this little girl to leave her home and follow Sarah into the woods to go to the Sanderson Sisters' cottage. Well, if you read the Mick Garris and Nick Cuthbert original screenplay for this Walt Disney Picture release...
It's Neil Cuthbert.
Neil Cuthbert? Okay, Neil Cuthbert.
Neil.
Okay. You'll find that the key plot point was lost in the opening moments of, the theatrical release version of Hocus Pocus. And again, remember, we're talking out in theaters summer of '93. So when Zachary Binks awakes, he calls to his younger sister and doesn't get a response. So Zachary then gets up, walks over to Emily's bed, pulls back the covers, and only then does Zachary notice that that not only is his sister missing, but he finds a half-eaten candy crow. And Zach immediately reacts in horror when he sees this, because these candy crows were actually supposedly how the Sanderson sisters bewitched the children of Salem Village. The Candy Crows contained a potion that then made the kids susceptible to Sarah's siren song. Only after these kids had ingested the special candy were they then willing to go to the Sanderson Sisters' cottage and get their youth sucked out, killing the kids in the process. We've established that. We now jump ahead about an hour into this 96-minute long movie. 300 years into the future, as the Sanderson sisters, now back from the dead, are being chased out of Gary Marshall's house by Penny Marshall, who's pelting them with Clark bars. And as Sarah, Winifred, and Mary are walking away from Gary Marshall's house, they quickly realize two things. The hobgoblins that are filling the streets of Salem aren't actually hobgoblins, but they're little kids in disguise. And the reason that all these children are out loose on the streets on Halloween night is because they're collecting candy. And Winifred quickly realizes that the Sanderson sisters can turn the situation to their advantage if they can somehow whip up another batch of their candy crows. So this is where we get into stuff that I had never seen before. Winifred, Mary, and Sarah make their way to a supermarket in modern-day Salem, where after first being startled by the automatic door, they then grab a shopping cart and begin to wander up and down the aisles, collecting all the ingredients they need to make candy crows. And this supermarket sequence, Shelley, was actually shot when Hocus Pocus was on location in Massachusetts back in October of 1992. By the way, I want to remind you, we actually went to... In fact, it's so sad. This year, Salem can't do its several-night Halloween thing.
We went on the 300th anniversary.
We did. We were there for that. And in fact, poor Shelley... We went to the House of the Seven Gable, which...
Oh, God, not this story.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. The House of the Seven Gable, which was doing kind of a haunted house kind of walkthrough. So in each room, there was a storyteller. And so we now moved to the attic, and there was an actor there lying in wait, and Shelley was the first person up the stairs into the room. And this guy jumped...
Never be the first person.
Never be the first person. So he jumps at her and loudly says, boo. And Shelley damn near took his head. You know, in fact, the poor guy eventually ends up acting in the farthest corner of the room because Shelley is throwing daggers at him with his eye.
I do not like being startled at all. I don't even like the pop-up Ghost at Haunted Mansion.
I get that. But, I just remember... sort of leading Michelle out of the room, and also, I'm so sorry. She doesn't really want to kill you. Anyway, okay, so back
yes,
to,
I did.
But again, they were supposedly shooting in Salem in October of 1992, so we could have actually seen them shooting this movie if we'd been on the ball. Anyway, Kathy Najimy, the actress who plays Mary Sanderson, the sister who says, I smell children, had a lot of fun stuff that she got to do in the supermarket sequence. There was Najimy, while shopping in the modern super gags include, she comes across a shelf loaded with jars of baby food and then becomes so excited because, oh my God, in the modern world, they actually make food out of babies. And then she comes across a display of baby oil and she just can't help herself. So she grabs a bottle of baby oil, twists off the top, and then begins chugging it down. and then there's this gag where she's in an aisle filling her cart. And here comes another shopper down the aisle. It's a mother who's pushing a shopping cart. Only in this cart, she's got a toddler in the child seat. And so Mary distracts the mom for a moment and then switches carts with her. And then Mary races up the aisle with that the shopping cart that has a toddler in it. And she's so excited because she's managed to get her hands on a real child that she and her sisters can now eat. But Winifred intercepts her, in the supermarket and basically says, look, we have to focus on the task at hand. So no snacking on the job. And so, Winifred then returns the cart and the toddler to the now frantic mom. The Sanderson sisters, the sequence in the modern day supermarket ends with Winnie and Sarah and Mary rolling their shopping cart up to the cashier's stand. And when the teenage boy who's working the register then says, will that be cash or charge? Winifred raises her hands, and we see those little magical lightning bolts coursing between her fingers, and she smiles evilly and says, charge, and then electrocutes the cashier. So the Sanderson sisters leave the supermarket. They then use a backyard barbecue grill, one of those kind of round black bottom things. They use it as a makeshift cauldron, and they then whip up a batch of candy crows. And in the very next scene, we see the Sanderson sisters standing in the street, and they're surrounded by dozens of trick-or-treaters who are just, oh my God, I want a candy crow, and they're just handing them out. and the kids are almost immediately consuming these bewitching treats. Anyway, you get the idea. The children of Salem have not consumed the candy crows, which means they have also swallowed the magic potions. The Sanderson sisters brewed up, which means that once Sarah starts singing her siren song, the kids will be unable to resist. They will climb out of bed and then walk almost like zombies to the Sanderson sisters' cottage, where Winifred, Mary, and Sarah will then suck out the youth and thus be able to live forever. So why did this entire piece of the plot get cut out of Hocus Pocus? Well, one of the reasons actually I've heard is after a few test screenings, Disney told Kenny Ortega to cut out any scene, cut out the scenes where Mary stole the shopping cart with the toddler, as well as the scene that showed the Sanderson sisters handing out bewitched candy to the children of Salem. Largely because the studio felt it made Mary, Winifred, and Sarah seem less sympathetic. In the long run here, Disney wanted Hocus Pocus to be seen as a family-friendly fantasy comedy, which is why the Sanderson sisters needed to be seen as comic villains rather than really for real villains. And also, there's a rule in Hollywood as a film comedy and enters its third and final act is you have to pick up at the pace. You can't be bogged down by plot. You got to stay light on your feet. This is literally known as running for the curtain. So here's Kenny Ortega. He's in the editing room working on, Hocus Pocus, trying to make the third act of this film tighter, move faster. And then Kenny gets these notes from Disney about which scenes they'd like to see cut out of the movie so the Sanderson sisters can be seen as more sympathetic. And Ortega's thrilled because it's like the studio has literally just solved this problem for him. Because cutting those scenes out just reduced Hocus Pocus' running time by about 3 minutes and also tightened up the third act. The only problem, though, is that these cuts create kind of a plot hole in the third act. Remember how we're shown, if you watch the finished film, Sarah is first shown flying over the city at night, singing her siren song, and then the streets of Salem are filled with kids, some in Halloween costumes, some in pajamas, and they're walking like zombies, again, toward the Sanderson sisters' cottage. But the movie then cuts to Max and Allison looking out of the window of the Dennison house. That's Max and Danny's last name, by the way, Dennison. At all these bewitched kids in the streets. And Max and Allison shout things like, "Turn back, don't go to the Sanderson house, they're going to kill you." But these kids, because they're under the spell of the siren song, just keep walking like zombies toward the cottage. Which has always begged the question, why don't Max and Allison fall under the spell of the siren song? I mean, surely these two, just like the kids in the streets, can hear Sarah singing. Why aren't they becoming bewitched and then joining the zombie parade to the cottage? And the answer, of course, is that Max and Allison, and Danny, for that matter, never ate the candy. They never ate a candy crow, so they can't fall under the sway of Sarah's siren song because they haven't consumed the magic potion. But anyway, remember, look, it's the final act of Hocus Pocus, and you're already invested in these characters, in this story. It's kind of like, Michelle, you've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Right.
Okay. So there's that moment where,
once or twice.
Indy, swims out to the Nazi submarine where they've taken Marion and they've taken the Ark of the Covenant, and he lashes himself to the periscope, and then there's kind of this smash cut where you see a map of the ocean and this red line that shows you where the sub went, and then the next thing you do is you see the sub pulling into an underground base that's been built in the side of a cliff, and you see Indy swimming away from the sub, and it's one of these things that's like, wait a minute, it's a submarine. It did never go underwater.
Well, maybe they kept the periscope up while they submerged.
I get that, but it's just one of these things where it's like, look, the hard reality is it's kind of a big plot hole, but on the other hand, you've so enjoyed the movie to that point that you're willing to cut the filmmakers a break. It's like, okay, sure, they never submerged, and it's kind of the same thing with Hocus Pocus. It's just one of these things where it's like, wait a minute, they can hear the song, they're not bewitched. Shut up. We're getting close to the end. Just don't ask questions. But anyway, okay, so like I said, comes out summer of 93, doesn't do the business that the studio wants it to do. So Disney decides, kind of an interesting move, rather than put the film out immediately on VHS, they actually hold it back till September of the following year, September of 94, with the thinking that, okay, we learned a hard lesson that when you put out a Halloween-themed movie out in July, people don't come out. But on the other hand, if we hold a Halloween-themed movie and put it on store shelves starting in September and let it sell through October, I bet it'll do okay. But at the same time, the notion is, well, we at least want people to know that it's coming. So October 1st of 1983 is when Aladdin, the VHS version of Aladdin, goes on sale. Disney really wants, remember how out ahead of the VHS movies, there would be that 15 minutes of coming attractions. And in fact, I think that's one of the very first places people got to see, the Circle of Life for the Lion King.
Right.
Again, these were the sorts of things that made you think, I want to go see that movie in theaters. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so when it came to Hocus Pocus, Disney really wanted to use Aladdin to make people aware that Hocus Pocus is coming to VHS in 1994. But at the same time, the people at Walt Disney Home Video were like, wow, if we're going to really make this work, if we're going to use Aladdin to get people excited about Hocus Pocus, we've got to make sure that the trailer that we put together for Hocus Pocus sort of fits the mood of Aladdin. It's the same sort of level of zany. So they asked, Kenny Ortega to turn over everything so that they could, they'd cut a brand new trailer for Hocus Pocus that they would then put in front of Aladdin. And they decided, okay, let's go with every big comic moment that we can. And in fact, what's interesting about the trailer, if you watch it today, you don't see Max, you don't see Danny, you don't see Allison, you don't even see Binks. But you do see the Sanderson sisters behaving like Moe, Larry, and Curly. What's especially interesting is that you can, when you watch the 30-second long trailer, and here's the kicker, folks, you can go on YouTube and do it right now. In fact, if you, the search terms you want to use are Hocus Pocus movie trailer 1993, and make sure you're watching the 30-second version, not the 2-minute long version. It's when you watch this trailer that you get to see Mary in the supermarket drinking the baby oil. It's you get to see the Sanderson sisters standing in the streets handing out Candy Crows to kids. There's even a scene, you get a snippet of a scene where the Sanderson sisters, the scene where they go to the high school to try to chase down the kids, they end up down by the school swimming pool. And, you get to see the moment where Mary and Sarah have just put Winnie in. But yeah, so they shot this brand new, they cut together this brand new trailer, and, and again, to match the tone of Aladdin. And it is just fascinating because, again, it features scenes that, again, you got to remember, this movie was already out in theaters. It was released theatrically, months before. And yet here, they're putting back in scenes that never made it into the finished movie. Anyway, now, Michelle, you were mentioning that when we were pre-gaming that, of course, there's been all this talk, more than 25 years after the fact of a Hocus Pocus sequel. And you saw the sequel novel, right?
Yeah, I saw it at Barnes & Noble.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I didn't buy it. I should have.
Well, you actually made a very wise decision. I have read the book, and it's set, again, it jumps the story forward 25 years. In a weird sort of way, it doesn't necessarily service the characters all that well. In fact, not to pull a Frank Hill here, but they introduce the Sanderson sisters' mother.
Oh, mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the interesting thing is that, according to the mythology, each of the Sanderson sisters had a different father. Sarah, for example, her dad was the village idiot. And Mary, God help her, her dad was a bloodhound. That's actually how she's able
Yeah.
how she's able to sniff out children, and that's why she occasionally in the film barks and growls. But anyway, if you're a long time,
Who was Winifred's dad?
I have been looking for that all of today, and maybe one of our listeners can provide that info. But again, I was able to confirm the village idiot for
And
Sarah.
if you do, you win absolutely nothing.
But yeah, able to confirm the village idiot for Sarah and the bloodhound for Mary, but couldn't come up with who Winifred's dad was. On the other hand, I did learn that how, in fact, there's this wonderful behind the scenes thing about the book, a book of spells that Winifred is so fond of. And it was the first time I realized that the binding, what's holding the book together, is fingers. So,
Ew.
but see, but this is the interesting part. This is what Kenny Ortega had to really do. He had to find that sweet spot between it being, a story that could legitimately be told about Halloween, but at the same time, it had to be fun. It had to be, these characters still had to be likable. In fact, Kenny just recently did an interview where he talked about how the Sanderson Sisters really, in his mind, were based on drag queen. That, that was the style of performance that he wanted out of them. And Bet, still talks about Winifred as if she's her favorite character that she's ever played. That, that she personally consulted on the makeup, the little bee sting lips. And in fact, she came in and insisted that Winifred's hair be done like Queen Anne's. So, I mean, she was very, very, very hands-on on it. And in fact, she said, look, I never take things home. I took home the teeth. And, I would go home, I'd go into, my bedroom and catch my daughter, in front of the mirror wearing Winifred's teeth. So, and just to sort of put a cherry on the sundae here, every year, Bet does a charity event called Halloween, which is, again, honors,
Right.
her Hawaiian family heritage and Halloween. And this year, again, raising money in the face of COVID-19, they are doing a Hocus Pocus themed event, and supposedly Sarah and Kathy are going to take part. So that's something definitely to keep an eye out for in the waning days of October here. So
Definitely.
anyway, so okay, folks. So there you have your shopping-related story tied to Halloween. Like I said, I apologize if you're looking for the Sanderson Sisters dress. They're gone. But that just tells you how ridiculously popular these characters are, were and still are. So that's going to do it for this week's show, folks. Now, Michelle, you were mentioning that you also do pieces over at Mice Chat. Is there anywhere else that folks can find you online?
No, I'm mostly just resting up.
Well, again, it's what you went through was pretty tough. So, that's an important thing. Just heal up and get better. On the other,
Thanks.
we're going to try to get another one of these out the door later this month, folks. But until then, if you're looking for stuff to listen to, we also have, Disney Dish with Len Testa. We have Universal Joint with Dustin Fuse. We have Looking at Lucasfilm with Dan Z. And speaking of shopping opportunities, folks, Dan's book, the Star Wars book, which he wrote with Pablo Hidalgo and Cole Horton, is coming out this week. So if you're a Star Wars fan, definitely check that out. Let's see, what else? We have Marvel Us Disney, the podcast I do with Aaron Adams. And how could I forget this? Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor. He and I talk about all sorts of animation news. I tell you what, folks, if you could do Shelley and I a favor, if you could head over to iTunes and rate and recommend this show, that would be incredibly helpful.
Please.
And tell you what, if you really, really, really like what you heard here tonight, if you could head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, well, again, that helps us afford the what used to be $49.99, now $34.29 Kylo Ren out. Ken, now I know you're on social media, Shelley. I've seen you over at Twitter.
Right.
If people are looking
At Pink Monorail.
Oh, okay. So go check that out. And Nancy wants me to remind you folks that you can find us Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media and on Facebook at Jim Hill Media News. And I guess that will do it for now. So thanks for listening, folks. And Shelley and I will be back soon.